Hello everyone, Steve Siebold back with MentalToughnessBlog.com, Nashville, Tennessee. A rainy day here in Nashville. I just did a TV interview for my book, Die Fat or Get Tough. I want to thank everyone who contributed to the commentary section on the Rush Limbaugh, Sandra Fluke post. Obviously a lot of emotional, heated discussion and a lot of healthy discussion, I think, as well. For those of you who keep telling me during these controversial posts that I should stick just to the basic tenets of mental toughness, we're actually going to put up a different blog just so we can take on the most controversial social issues of in America, of our time. And it'll be separate from this blog, and I'll be telling you more about that. It's going hand in hand with the release of my new book, which comes out in June, which I won't tell you the title of, but I will tell you that major publishers in New York have already told me it's the most controversial book coming out in 2012. So we'll see if that's true or not. Some of you will enjoy it, some of you won't. But what I wanted to talk about today is emotional thinking versus logical thinking. Now, the reason I want to talk about this is one of the things I talk about with companies. Obviously, critical thinking skills. I go into, for example, boards of directors at companies, and there'll be 10 or 12 of them in the room for 5 or 6 hours, and I will talk to them about the importance of critical thinking at the highest levels of corporate leadership. And what I want to talk about here is, and the reason I want to talk about it right in this post is because of all the emotional thinking that went on in the commentary of the Rush Limbaugh post. Now, let me be specific. In that post, what I asked was, why didn't Rick Santorum and Mitt Romney, the GOP frontrunners, comment more strongly against Rush Limbaugh? It had nothing to do with birth control. It had nothing to do with entitlement. It had nothing to do really with Sandra Fluke. It really had to do with a lack of leadership, or my perceived lack of leadership. It was not a partisan post. I am not a Republican. I mean, I'm not a Democrat is what I meant to say. And I'm not a Republican either. All right? I'm an independent. Not that that matters, but this is really key, because when we get charged up emotionally about something, especially when it's something controversial, which is the reason we do these posts. This is what I do, you guys, when I go into a board of directors at a company. Very, very smart people, very logic-based, very reason-based. But when you throw them something very emotional, they'll switch from logic to emotion, and that's the problem, because emotional thinking clouds judgment. People make leaps that are not logical, leaps that are not linear, and it hurts us. We're primarily emotion-based creatures, you probably know that, and that's the problem. We have a tendency to leap to emotional thinking when we get fired up, and it's a real problem, even with the biggest companies and the biggest leaders in those companies in the world. If you didn't comment on the Rush Limbaugh post, I'd challenge you to go back and read some of the comments and notice how most of them have nothing to do with the question I was asking. That's emotional thinking. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It simply means that people got locked into so much emotion that they couldn't see the forest for the trees. So they weren't thinking logically. Okay, it doesn't matter in this post. This is just an exercise. It matters in life. It matters when you're talking about making money, for example. Most people don't. I just did an interview at the Wall Street Journal a couple days ago, and they said, why don't most people have more money? And the reason, in my opinion, is because people think about money through the eyes of emotion. And money needs to be dealt with through the eyes of logic and reason. Something to think about. Emotional thinking versus logical thinking. How good of a critical thinker are you? And if you're thinking through emotion, not very good. I'm Steve Siebold, Nashville, for the Mental Toughness blog. I'll see you next time.